All right, and now so begins our read through of the Kobold Guide to Role Playing. We'll put on some background music here. What would be good for that? You know what? Let's put on The Voyage Begins. And okay. Now, in getting this going, I do want to say that this is. I should probably put up a little disclaimer or something, right? This is not sponsored. I was sent a review copy of this book because I signed up to be in a reviewer program that Kobold Press has. Let me put. Let's just add a new source real quick. I should have thought about this earlier. We're gonna add source. We're gonna call this. Do I have a hashtag not sponsored? I don't. But you know what? I do now. We're gonna call this hashtag not sponsored. Add source and all right. I'll add that down here. It might be a we can put it up here. Okay, there we go. I think that works. So this is not sponsored. I was sent a review copy. It did have a redemption code, so I did get it for free as a reviewer. Um, and for being in their program. However, the email did not indicate that I need to be kind, that I have to use certain words. I'm very much not in any kind of a content creator whisper network where we're comparing notes and we all have to say the same phrase or whatever. I can be as critical as I want. I can be as lauding as I wish. And in all honesty, look, as someone whose store has suffered the consequences of the collateral damage from culture war issues and cancellations and all kinds of I don't know, just fan baiting and rage baiting and click farming and all that. I'm not going to indulge in any of that because I'm so tired of it, and I have paid for it despite not participating in it. So, whatever this book holds for us, it's not even just for you. I haven't read this book yet. I want to start diving into it with you. Um, I want this to be a first reaction. I want this to be thoughtful. I want the emotions to be pure, and I'm not taking a side. I'm not supporting any person or goal or ideology. I want to see what the Kobold Guide here says because you know what, the Kobold Guides have been pretty good. I've enjoyed them and I have them in the store for sale too. So I hope that trend can continue with what this guide to role playing has. And considering that we're a workshop, we talk about this, we welcome newcomers. Let's explore this together. My secret agenda. So I guess if I had a secret agenda, it's that I could very well have done this alone, but secretly I like hanging out with people and talking with them. And so secretly, by not doing it alone, I don't need to just sit here and do it alone. So there we go. Your all's presence, and in a sense, I hope this does offer a little bit of cool factor and a justification for why you might be subscribed on YouTube, or which is a different thing than being subscribed on Twitch. But if you're on either, thank you. So yeah, and you know what? We'll see if that holds true, Goblin of Gygaxanor. So let's see. We have our Kobold Guide to Role-Playing with essays by Keith Amon, Ginny D. Probably D, right? Clint McElroy, Aaron Roberts, Michael E. Shea, Gail Simone, B. Dave Walters, and more. So let's go into it here. If any of you want me to stop because you want to discuss something or have me go back, then let me know. We're here. I'm not on a time limit. I'm not under a deadline to say or do some sort of video essay by this date, or Kobold Press is cutting me off and never doing business again. So let's go into it here. I'm going to turn down this volume just a little bit. And if the microphone or background music needs adjusting, please let me know. We just want you to stop so we can collaborate and listen. Of course. Yeah. You know what? I actually bought new, they're not the big parachute hammer pants, but I did buy new jeans. Because after doing all this office work, my old pair here, super like kind of grungy and old and everything, they're in bad shape. Anyway. I will let, and I don't think I'm gonna hit on everything here because I just personally don't know the I mean, this was a review copy. I want to review it, but I also don't want to I'm not being paid to read the audiobook version of it. So let's start out with an essay by Gail Simone named Shamed Out, Loved In. When I was a kid, we lived on a remote farm far from the nearest town. It was a solid walk past a bunch of other farms to get to the bus stop, and there was no cable TV that far in the woods, so we had to make our own entertainment, like the hillbillies and all those horror films where someone takes a wrong turn and ends up in a cannibal's buffet. Of course, being a kid, I never got to pick the menu, and so instead, the kids I knew, mostly my cousins and younger brother, would make up these elaborate adventures in the pastures and forest around the impossibly rural situation we found ourselves surrounded by pretty much every chance we got. The thing was, we had board games, we had a little bit of television reception, but mostly all we could watch was much of all the boring old guys playing golf that we could stomach, which was very little indeed, as it turned out. We had animals to visit and bond with, but not too much because, well, you've seen Babe, I'm sure. And thank the gods, we had books. So we had distractions, we had activities. But nothing in the world was as fun as play acting action stories among the hay bales and crops. Batman was a favorite. I made my brother play the hostage because I was terrible. As was Wonder Woman. plus various bionic characters, but there were also adventures in Narnia and Middle-earth and other fantastical realms. And because kids don't know it's silly, we would become those characters. No costumes, sticks for swords, rocks for batarangs, it didn't matter. One kid was Robin, another was Bilbo, nothing made any sense, and it was the most fun I'd ever had. We'd be sent outside to find an activity, which meant getting out of the adult's hair. We'd groan and complain, and then once we started, we would play and fight and run until we got yelled at to come in for supper. I feel genuinely bad for any kid with so many other distractions that they never got to do that. But that instinct to be the hero of your own adventures is something kids do naturally. No one wants to play the hostage, they want to be the hero. It's meaningful, enjoyable, it's affirming. Above all, it's liberating. I don't think we've had, or I don't think we'd have enjoyed it as, I don't think we'd have enjoyed it much more if we did have proper costumes and props. That was never the point. The fun was choreographing these elaborate set pieces and fights and just being dorks in general for the sheer wild fun of it. It leads to flights of whimsy, where a kid reads a book and imagines themselves in it. And that leads to a lifetime of transportive fiction. The kid with the stick pretending to be Aragorn grows up to become the young person who writes fanfic, and maybe the adult who becomes a game designer, or an actor, or a novelist, or, God forbid, and most shamefully, comic book writer. Gail Simone is a comic writer. I work in a creative field and have been to conventions in 43 countries. I can see the joy in the artist when someone loves their work, in the writer when a reader gushes over their story, in the cosplayer when someone is agog at their costume. The point is, that feeling of play, of acting, of communal storytelling, that is one of the happiest times of our young lives. It connects us to a world of imagination where we are not merely witnesses but participants. The person who engages the mind creatively and without regret gets to live not just one life, but many lives simultaneously. They're one reel and the vistas in their mind, where they are Batman, or Bilbo, or Wonder Woman. But there's a brick wall on those tracks in almost all cases, something that breaks that chain from child at play to adult with dreams, and it comes in many forms. Parents, teachers, even other kids. At some point, someone says, "Quit acting like babies." And Batman falls off the buildings, Bilbo gets eaten by wargs, Wonder Woman's invisible plane drops out of the sky. Because imagination is fragile, it needs to be nurtured and protected from the elements. And someone somewhere, maybe with good intentions, but often not, is going to tell you that play acting is for babies. Imagination is for losers. Very little hurts like embarrassment when you're young and can't necessarily defend yourself or even explain why role-playing is important, what a release is. All you know is that scornful look and those adamant words. Stop doing that. Come in and do something useful. Sometimes role-playing feels like the thing the whole world wants to tell you to stop. Or feels like a thing the whole world wants to tell you to stop. Which makes carrying on a delightful defiance. It's also a place where, as a kid, we're safe to attempt to imagine living another life. It's a vital empathy exercise and an expression of desires of the heart. At home, maybe you're unnoticed and unheard, but when you're role-playing, you get to be whatever you truly want to be. Pausing there for a moment, this is, I do agree that the escapism is very much a part of role-playing. It's what can help invigorate the mind and the soul, in my own experience and opinion. It is an exercise in empathy as well, but it doesn't always have to be. Sometimes you just want to have a power fantasy of indulgence, or you actually, as much as she said that you don't, no one likes playing the hostage, right? Well, who likes playing the villain, the bad guy? Sometimes playing the villain is a lot of fun. Probably more fun than the hero. It's a little bit of a spice to life. But it can very much help develop your own sense of storytelling and entertainment. It's a bond with other people with whom you play. And I have seen personally, and especially in others, what she herself is providing an anecdote for from growing up in a rural area about how it can facilitate action and thought and really stoke that the fires of imagination. Yeah, I was just thinking that too. I'm like, for some kids, it's you got to come home when the street lights turn on. But as Goblin and Gygaxmar said, we didn't have street lights; we had fireflies. Yeah, when the fireflies are out, you got to go home. Those were the good old days, says Bagger, playing with friends till the street lights came on. Yep. And there can very much be a sense of defiance, though um it's not always an act of defiance. Maybe towards, the crushing realities of that IRL stuff we've heard about. But um it can very much be I just want to spend time with my friends. There's no defiance. Maybe more so as an adult. When you get together with other adult friends and it's a beer and pretzels game, or it's you can finally you go over to so and so's house and you can just burp, fart, and cuss, and as you're providing yourself with an empathy fueled character, or on the other extreme, just the imposing power fantasy. It can be an indulgent thing too. But I am glad that she's hitting on that sense of wonder and growth that can accompany someone, even if they're already an adult, through role playing. Anyway, let's pick up here where we had left off. It's also the place where, as a kid, we're safe to attempt to imagine living another life. Wait, I think I already said that part, right? Vital empathy exercise and expression of desires of the heart. Yeah. Notice and unheard. All right. Break that chain, and maybe that kid grows up not to be the artist, the poet, the singer, the dancer. Maybe they go on to a fulfilling, productive life. But a part of them stays hidden forever, unshared and unknown. Now, fast forward. You get together with some people, maybe friends, maybe strangers, to play a role-playing game. We've all done this, obviously, and we've all seen how new players hit a spectrum from I'm all in to I'm going to be quiet for the entire evening. One new player grasps the idea instantly, lustily plays their character, and loudly declares their every movement. But others, apparently that was my computer making a noise, but others, maybe remembering being yelled at the last time they tried playing someone else, instead shut down, finding the vibe an impossible train to catch. I know that can be frustrating. I've seen players bullied by GMs and vice versa. It's fun for no one and very quickly has people looking for the door to escape. But please give a thought to this possibility that some people have locked a bit of their ability to cut loose, to lose themselves in front of others, while playing being somebody else. I say bring those people in. Let them know it's a safe space, that there aren't any wrong moves, that they're not going to break the rules, and that they don't even know, and that it's just fun to screw something up in the game as it is to nail it perfect. Role play opportunities, right? All right, you roll a 1 or whatever the equivalent might be in another system outside of D&D. That's a role play opportunity. Those are often more exciting than just the mechanical advantages of a critical success or a critical hit in some way. Let people make mistakes. Yes. Yes. Let people make mistakes. That's how we learn. That's a great way, especially in business, which is super scary because you're supposed to earn a living off of doing that. And yet that old adage of hurry up and fail comes into play. Hurry up and fail means, you make that mistake, you learn from it, you grow, and you do it better next time. Encourage them to participate by giving them encounters specific to them. When they pull away, gently show them the way back in. It is, even with a static group of friends that you've known for forever and even forever and a day, there is still that ebb and flow. There is the tide. There is the, well, I may know so and so, but I don't know so and so's character. And let's feed a little bit into that and challenge it by removing the that comfortable area, right? We've seen what you can do in it. You know, you're a forest ranger. Well, what happens if you're not in the forest anymore? How can you make up for that and learn and adapt through your character? That kind of. We don't know their life. Maybe someone really cut their fantasy chain. Don't reinforce that. Instead, be the wire tying it back together, from child at play to adult with dreams. It's really my favorite thing to see in any session with new players, when the person that seems shyest and most baffled suddenly yells, I am Bettina of the Mountain Elves, and this is my realm. And you realize all at once, you've got another Slayer on your hands. And isn't that just the best thing ever? I had a relative like this, popular, talented as a musician, but terribly afraid of being embarrassed, of saying the wrong thing, of standing out in a bad way. We played a game of D&D over a rainy holiday weekend, and everyone was excited to try, while my relative expressed only scorn and feigned disinterest. Somewhere inside, I'm sure he was hearing that voice. Stop doing this. Dragons aren't real. But I knew he loved reading, loved adventure stories. So we started the group chained together in a dark prison, Man in the Iron Mask style. Within minutes, he was struggling to find the key to the chains, unintentional symbolism alert. Within an hour, he was hooked and unchained. The next day, he was making dungeon maps. Within a week, he was running his own campaign, acting out the voices of every character. It was and remains my favorite RPG experience ever, seeing his inner actor, storyteller, dramatist that I didn't even know existed, because we gave him that platform, that way in, and made it as inviting as possible. I guarantee you that if you have people like that around you, or I guarantee you that you have people like that around you, imagine how fun it will be to discover them in your proximity. Give them that chance, won't you? Role-playing is the multicolored, life-enriching experience you have to be shamed out of loving, but that you can be loved into rediscovering. Signed, Bettina of the Mountain People. Dun dun dun, the twist was the whole time, perhaps Gail here was that shy starter who learned to embrace it and wants to help others unlock those feelings. Bagger says, imagination should never be stifled. It is imagination one of the things that leads to invention. One person's rebel is another's freedom fighter, says Goblin of Gygax, in order to continue saying, I thought we all were going to be institutionalized like Tom Hanks. Yeah, if you're not a forest ranger and you're just a ranger. I do I do like the sentiment that's here of encouraging, right? Kindling those flames of storytelling in other people. Not just to sucker them into being the forever DM, but I suppose there is always that. But a unlocking that wonder. Now, I will add that just because you open that door, or in this case, you lead the horse to water, but how does the expression go? You can't make it drink. For as good as you might have intentions, for as much as you've done this before, you have due diligence, you have a session 0 and everything, this is a story you've run 100 times before, that horse won't drink. So it's important to also not take it personally, if that's the case. Though do remember that there is that continuation of the phrase. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. We'll add a second but. Yeah, we have two buts in here. But maybe we should say however. However, you can make it thirsty. And so leading people into the hobby is itself a practice in patience and using your best empathic skills to read them as well as the room and to see how things are going, to communicate. Being a player is fun, but I can see where being a DM could also be a lot of. It is. It is Bagger. I enjoy playing. I think I'm most satisfied if I'm actually the one telling the story, though. It's that weird case of the same thing but different. And while we're talking about role playing, I suppose that does seem to favor playing in a game. But make no mistake that the DM, the GM, the ST is very much role playing and a role player as well. They just happen to be sitting in a different part or at a different part of the table, playing through a slightly different set of rules. But it's the same game and the same story. Let's get into this next one here. This next story is called Leaders, Liars, and Heartbreakers: A Player's Guide to Role-Playing Charisma, or as I like saying it in the workshop, charisma. This little essay is by Ginny D, who is a cosplayer. Am I correct? If I'm grossly mistaken, hey, please let me know. The name is familiar, but I don't know. Just like with Gail Simone, I can't tell you a specific issue of something she's written. And yep, that's the thing right there. Right, that's the issue to read or whatnot. So I'm familiar with some of these names. I just may not know these authors as much as maybe some of you out there. Those of us who struggle to open pickle jars in real life usually don't think twice about kicking down a door in a role-playing game. When we role-play, our own body doesn't have any connection to our character's physical abilities. But when it comes to role-playing a personality different from our own, that line blurs. For game tables with an emphasis on social roleplay, it can feel like we're expected to demonstrate mental ability scores at the table. In particular, I often see people concerned about how to effectively play characters with high charisma when they don't consider themselves to be charismatic. Whether this is a result of TTRPG players being self-professed socially awkward nerds, quote unquote, or simply a matter of charisma itself being difficult to quantify and define, it seems to be the score that worries people the most. Even role-playing low charisma can be challenging to pull off without annoying your fellow players or turning it into a caricature. Thankfully, it is entirely possible to roleplay a character with high charisma without somehow transforming yourself into a real-life smooth talker. Defining charisma. Describing someone as charismatic in real life could mean a variety of different things, but luckily, when we're operating in the context of most RPGs, the term is more strictly defined. In D&D's Player's Handbook, for instance, charisma is described as, quote, your ability to interact effectively with others. I like to return to this definition when in doubt, because without it, it's easy to reduce charisma to simply charm. But it's entirely possible to be effective in social situations without being agreeable. After all, deception and intimidation are also charisma-based skills. It might be more accurate to define charisma as force of personality. an umbrella which includes both the positive forces of charm and persuasiveness and the negative forces of being menacing or deceitful. After all, a beholder has 17 charisma, and I suspect that most people who encounter them don't come away from that experience thinking, what a charming creature. The player's handbook also explains that ability scores don't just represent someone's natural abilities, but learned skills as well. This means that while having an innately magnetic personality or intimidating presence can certainly play a role in having high charisma, so can practiced eloquence and manners or experience with public speaking or performance. I think it's helpful to examine your character's high mental scores through both these lenses, in order to get a well-rounded view of their personality. In what ways does your character display innate charisma, and in what ways have they learned charismatic skills? Hi, Wendanope. Good to see you. She has okay, so she's a YouTuber then. Iron Chef. Krieger says she does cosplay, role playing, and advice on role playing. Okay. I can see I can see why Kobold Press then has an essay by her. So far in this, a very good point has been made that the score in whichever game you play is something that is easy to get hung up on, as it's often seen as just a natural or an artificial limiter, as well as a pry bar to just force your way into something because, well, my math is high enough that I should almost always get my way. Hi, Belladonna. Good to see you. And much like the phrase of Mark Twain that goes, "Don't let classes get in the way of your education," don't let your score get in the way of your role playing. But let's continue. Of course, scale cannot be ignored here. Returning to D&D as an example, an above average charisma score of 12 is going to look very different from a maxed out score of 20. And while a score of 8 is certainly below average, that person is going to have a much easier time in social situations than someone with a score of 3. Instead of lumping all charisma scores into low or high, consider where your score falls on the full continuum. If 10 is an average person who can hold a conversation, make friends, and occasionally puts food in their mouth, then a score of 8 might mean they're a bit awkward. 5 might mean they struggle to hold a normal conversation, and 3 might mean they're almost universally disliked or misunderstood. Likewise, 12 might make them likable, 15 might make them popular, and 18 might mean they command a room the moment they enter it. While what we've discussed above makes it pretty clear what charisma is, it's also important to recognize what it isn't. There's a pervasive belief among many RPG players that charisma correlates with physical attractiveness. Thank you very much for that follow. Is that Delaco? Is it 3 hard separate syllables? All the same. Welcome to the Hero Zone. And thank you for joining us for this exploration and conversation on the Kobold Guide to Roleplaying. Remember, you all are welcome to share your own thoughts and experiences, your own wisdom from the table, or ask questions if something is brought up and you want clarification from the book, or you just want other people to bring up their perspective on something. Getting closer, yeah, Bagger. And in fact, the auto tracker up there worked. We are now only 20 people away from summoning Tiamat. Bum, bum, bum. Well, what we've discussed above makes it pretty clear. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So there was that. Oh, yeah, that the charisma correlates with physical attractiveness, which that is also a common occurrence. Some systems have that already baked in. maybe with a separate score. Comeliness, for example, um, is that more physical manifestation of how you appear to others. So that's pervasive. Oh yes, this belief suggests that a high charisma score makes a character beautiful or handsome, and a low charisma makes them ugly. While first edition D&D include, oh, there we go. I remember everyone, I haven't read this before. While first edition D&D included an ability score called Comeliness, which was modified by the character's charisma score, later editions of the game do not include a character's looks in the definition of charisma, nor do any other games I can think of. I suspect we've all met people who didn't fit our conventional definitions of beauty, but were nonetheless a force to be reckoned with in social situations. Not to mention people whose good looks were wrapped around a miserable personality. While it's perfectly reasonable, how does that phrase go? Looks, personality, and intelligence. Pick two. All of you out there, including me, you only get two of the three. And I'll let you choose which two you think you qualify for. But you either got looks, you got brains, or you got the I just got ahead of myself. I got 2 steps ahead. I tripped and I fell. It was looks, personality, and intelligence, right? All right, Belladonna. Well, thank you for lurking. Hi, Brandon. Good to see you. Are there any burbs and/or kobolds? So far, no. This is practical advice on role playing that we've discovered so far. There was one character that was an elf that was brought up, however, Brandon. You picked brains and personality, Bagger? Brandon says, that reminds me of when I made my burbs, and I had a 12 charisma because I'm a cute burb. And you know what? At your table, or just in your own personal context, a charisma score might very well be that manifestation of physicality, of an attractiveness, whatever a conventional beauty might be in the setting or in one culture in that setting. Where did I leave? I should really highlight where I left off. Not to mention people whose good looks were wrapped around a miserable personality. While it's perfectly reasonable to include a character's looks in your understanding of their charisma, I would caution you against relying on it as the foundation, and encourage you to ignore it completely if you don't find it interesting to explore. What about high charisma? Since we've already established that there isn't just one way to be charismatic, it's important to determine what kind of charisma your character has in order to know how to roleplay it. Your character could be seductive and magnetic, or disarming and likable, or intimidating and gruff, and each of these personality types would play out very differently at the table, probably while sharing the same score. If you're unsure of how to narrow down your character's style, looking at their charisma-based proficiencies can be a good start. A character with proficiency in performance might be flamboyant and attention-seeking, whereas a character with proficiency in intimidation might speak infrequently and instead communicate mainly in threateningly body language. Just like threatening body language. Significant looks and loaded silences. Of course, you could just as easily have a performer who quietly draws the eyes of onlookers with the way they dress or carry themselves, or someone who intimidates by weaponizing their words to dismantle and challenge anything the other person says. Don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions about charisma. If you don't want to play a talkative character or a flirtatious character, that's okay. That's the fun of it. There are many different ways that each charisma based skill can be represented. As long as you're aware of the end goal, you can be creative with how to get there. This might be addressed later on as well, but it harkens back to what the author said a little earlier about playing a character who's supposed to be super smart, but I don't know. Maybe you're young. You only just are you just graduated or might be going for a GED, or you're almost ready to graduate high school. Or you might be super smart when it comes to taking care of animals, but you have no idea about accounting and writing checks and about how the business world works. And yet you're playing a merchant character. To piggyback on what Gail was talking about, getting out there and role playing, it's a good give and take to be able to use your scores to open up doors, and you can role play your way through them. You may be an introverted person, though you don't have a lot of personal experience being extroverted. Your character might be a dynamic go-getter because that's your way to explore that life, that type of personality, and even be a way for you to exercise your own abilities to talk with people. Icebreakers, stories, jokes, things to provide your own comfort in a situation and not rely on others to supply it, right? Um and in that case, a score can be used as that door opener. Playing a wizard with a high intelligence, I don't know how magic works, even in the real life, because magic doesn't exist. Still, I know that my character is skilled enough in that situation, and it's an easy enough prompt to at least rely on the score to open the conversation with whoever's telling the story. I'm not sure how my character, like, I don't know how I'd approach this, but I can assure you my character would be very bold in this circumstance. May I have some help role playing this? Which is absolutely fine. And you excuse yourself politely by having that score. I've certainly done a fair share of also taking myself out of a situation. If my character is low intelligence, I may have put together the mystery or the riddle, but until there's a way that it would be relevant for my character to be able to put that together, unless there's explicit permission from the facilitator of the game that, yeah, if you know it, that's cool, that's fine. Anyway, I'm sorry, where were we here? If you're unsure, a character with proficiency in performance might be flamboyant and attention getting. Okay, there's that. Probably draws the eyes of the on. You know what? I just said I have to highlight where I leave off, so I don't do this anymore. Don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions about charisma. If you don't want to play a talkative character or a flirtatious character, that's okay. That's the fun of it. You know what? I think it was actually we left off at this paragraph. For example, let's say you want your character to be charming and likable. When interacting with NPCs or other player characters, this person might affirm their opinions and ideas, listen attentively when they talk, and laugh at their jokes. They might avoid doing and saying things that upset people, such as being rude, selfish, or boastful. You can develop a list of do's and don'ts like this for any number of different personality types. An inspiring leader could be an attentive listener and take care to remind the group of their purpose and values when facing a difficult situation. They probably wouldn't be pessimistic or express uncertainty or hesitance. A flirt could deliver compliments and touch people casually when interacting. They probably wouldn't wait for someone to approach them or be offended if someone showed romantic interest in them. An intimidating person could display unshakable confidence and feel comfortable making demands or threats. They probably wouldn't sugarcoat their words or apologize. I think it's important to note that demonstrating high charisma in your role play does not necessarily demand an actual charismatic performance. Just like a player can say, I climb the rocks. Are you okay? That's not a hairball coming out, is it? Are you okay? All right. Use that little cough. That's a big stretch. All right. I think we're safe. Especially because she's up higher than I am, and I would prefer not to have a hairball land on me. Anyway, just like a player can say, I climb the rocks or I pick the lock, you can summarize or describe the things your character says rather than saying every single word in character. Despite the often invoked false dichotomy of role playing versus role playing, there is a wide range of options between saying I seduced the barmaid and giving a play by play of your entire courtship. You can provide some details of how you plan to gain the barmaid's affection while still summarizing your action. Of course, every GM has different expectations for their table, but I generally find that the more detail the player gives, the more immersive the role playing experience can be for everyone at the table, and the more inclined the GM is to give your efforts a fighting chance. If a player says, I seduced the barmaid, the role required for success might be extremely high, whereas the more specific and nuanced, I noticed the barmaid reading behind the bar and ask her about the book, trying to strike up a flirtatious conversation and then offer to buy her a drink, would be much easier to achieve. If you're unsure how to translate your character's charisma skill into first person dialogue, don't be afraid to say things like, she uses a commanding tone, or he gives an inspiring speech about the people in need of our help, the obstacles they've overcome already, and the past victories they've celebrated. Now, what about low charisma? Just as high charisma can come in many different flavors, so can low charisma. Ask yourself what personality traits make this character ineffective at social interaction. Ma'am? Are they impolite, never saying please and thank you, tracking mud into the pristine temple and commenting loudly on the king's short stature? Are they shy, clamming up when speaking to NPCs, stuttering or sweating when addressed, and second guessing all their thoughts and opinions? Are they haughty and dismissive of others, refusing to admit fault and acting arrogant and self centered? Unfortunately, Hi. You need some affirmation? You're a cat. There you go. Unfortunately, since low charisma is directly tied to uncomfortable or unpleasant social interactions, it can be all too easy to slip into a persona that is annoying to your fellow players. Perhaps your table will find your rude, vulgar character funny. There's also a good chance that they won't like it any more than the NPCs do. When in doubt, it's perfectly acceptable to talk with your group above table to make sure you aren't crossing any lines that make the game less fun for everyone. And that is true. If you have a low charisma character, just it's like it's similar to having an evil character. You're playing an evil character. Hey, off the keyboard, ma'am, please. Uh, if you're playing an evil character, you don't have to burn down every orphanage you walk past and kick every puppy in the streets, even if you're evil. If you have a low charisma character, it doesn't mean you have to sound like Biff Tannen or some other kind of bully or crass person. Because there is a point, whether you're evil, whether you are horny, whether you are just some low charisma, rude, gruff person, where the other characters say, "Why are we with you? Why are we friends? Why are we together?" Because suspension of disbelief can only do so much. And in that case, the player would have to say, well, it's what my character would do. All right, well, play your character somewhere else. That's not what this story or our party's about. Um, be true to your character, just don't do it here because there's no reason why any of us would want to be with you. Of course, that extends to real life as well, but it does manifest there too. I do like so far that the tone is about feeling it out. The score can matter, but it doesn't always have to. The presentation can matter, but it doesn't always have to. So far, the advice has been, pretty solid. Feel it out. Feel it out with your character, through your character, IRL, with your heads up friends or family at your table. Anyway, what is the secret to charisma? Are you ready for me to let you in on a secret? Pretty much anything that could demonstrate high charisma could also demonstrate low charisma. A person with high charisma could say flirtatious things that cause an NPC to fall head over heels for them. Meanwhile, a person with low charisma saying the exact same things would be perceived as inappropriate and/or as a creep. That's because charisma isn't just about what you do, it's also about how the things you do are received. For this reason, I think charisma is the skill that most demands communication and teamwork between a player and their GM. For example, if you play a charismatic character and you say something awkward, NPCs could see it as endearing. Once you determine the type of charisma you want your character to have, I highly recommend discussing it with your GM. If they know that your character has a threatening presence, for example, they can take that into account when playing off your character during social roleplay. In the end, role-playing means stepping into the perspective of someone who is different from us. You don't need to become a charismatic person in order to play a charismatic character, any more than you need to learn martial arts to play a monk. Pick a few character traits and habits that align with how you imagine your character would display charisma, or lack thereof. Note them down somewhere, you can reference them during sessions, and start playing that duplicitous bard or charming warlock. Lurk away, heretic! Brandon says, there's a point where my character is smarter than I am, so reverse metagaming happens where it's like, well, I know my character would know this, but I defo don't. A DM forcing people to, so how do you actually say this for charisma characters can be very daunting if IRL you are low charisma. My friend plays an evil character, but they aren't just an a-hole killing all the NPCs. They're subtly evil. They don't actually have an alignment due to curse. Yeah, Thantos, work together with the GM? Get out of it. Clearly, role-playing is players versus GM, right? That's the screen is the 50-yard line denoting the sides, right? It's the tennis net. It's that's the boundary, the border, the verses between the two sides. It's contentious, and communication is certainly not encouraged because then you're giving each other secrets. Ugh, get out of here with that. Well, I'm gonna go top off my water again. Give me just a bit here. I'll be back in just a minute or two, and after I get things unparched, why don't we'll start up, and we can get into our next. We could probably do one more set of two, right? Failure is always an option, and rock and roll. How's that sound? Okay. So we'll be back very soon, and we'll continue discussing elements of role playing as brought to you by these essayists, collected here by the Kobold Guide to Role Playing. So be right back, everyone.